I was doing some research last week. My former employ, I had to do a little bit of studying on the Middle East. But there were certain gaps in my knowledge, if you will, because the Army only really wants you to study those things that are really important and right in front of you. So I was trying to brush up on some of my Iranian history, and I noticed something particularly interesting that I was hoping to share with you. For nearly 900 years, as it turns out, Farsi-speaking peoples have learned of love and tragedy, not through Romeo and Juliet, as it turns out, but through an epic poem entitled Farhad and Shirin. Let me know if I'm saying it wrong, by the way, but I'm pretty sure I tested it out. Written by the celebrated Persian poet Nizami Ganjavi, Farhad and Shirin chronicles the love between the Sasanian king, Khosrau, and the Armenian princess Shirin, who becomes his queen. And since its completion 835 years ago, this poem, this epic poem, has inspired countless legends, cultural symbols, and ballads, and icons that permeate throughout Persian culture. Its impact was so widespread that it inspired no fewer than 3 novels and 6 full-length feature films. Like Romeo and Juliet, for English speakers, Farhad and Shirin represents the definitive tale of love and tragedy, at least in the Iranian community. And yet, an entire generation of Iranians is now deprived of its influence. In 2011, the Iranian Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance banned the poem, ostensibly because of its romantic content. So Farhad and Shirin, which influenced at least a certain amount of Iranian thought for nearly 9 centuries, has now been put on hold indefinitely. Our tendency to suppress ideas and discourse that challenge authoritarian edicts and creeds is not anything new. The first recorded instance of censorship actually dates all the way back to 399 before the Common Era, when Socrates was executed for defying edicts by the Greek state that were meant to stifle his philosophical teachings. Ever since, human history has remained rife with instances of political, religious, and ideological censorship. Even the Torah appears to know about this sort of behavior and is very suspicious of it. In this week's Torah portion, Vayelech, after providing a blessing and some forewarning about the dangers that are going to fall the Israelites when they enter the Promised Land, Moses offers a very interesting instruction to the Israelite leadership. Vayhi kachalot Moshe lichtov et divrei haTorah hazot al sefer ad tumam. As Moses finished writing the words of this teaching upon a book until its very end, Moses charged the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant of Adonai, saying, "Take this book of teaching and place it next to the Ark of Covenant of Adonai your God, and there it shall remain as a witness for you." Our sages suggest that the words "until its very end" signify a warning against those who would edit or censor the elements of the Torah for their own purposes. Even the authors of our most sacred text were concerned about what might happen to it, about what information might be removed from its contents, or whether or not it might be restricted altogether. Thus, our sages teach, the Torah itself instructs us that though we are free to add to the reservoir of knowledge that the Torah brings to us, and we have at great length, we're not allowed to take away from it. To a certain extent, this becomes a mantra for Judaism as we know it. After all, the primary reservoir of Jewish ritual and belief comes not from Torah, but from the Talmud, a 63-volume record of generations of conversations, debates, and struggles, a living testament to complex and diverse opinions regarding Jewish tradition. Nothing gets left out of the Talmud, In fact, contradictions abound within the text and are presented as a matter of fact, which is why we're told that though Hillel and Shammai often had directly conflicting opinions, the words of both of them were the words of the living God. Even the Torah, if we're fair, contains content that appears contradictory. We're given 2 ways to understand creation, 3 ways to understand revelation at Mount Sinai, and countless ways to comprehend our relationship with God. And yet, our Torah teaches, don't reconcile it, don't edit it, don't censor it. All of it must be maintained. Because the truth that the Torah shares with us is that truth is multifaceted. We need 2 creation stories. We need 3 revelation stories. We need Hillel and Shammai. And we need Romeo and Juliet, as well as Farhad and Shirin. And yet, to maintain this multiplicity of ideas at the same time, to permit these contradictions to exist, seems entirely at odds with human nature. According to psychologists, nearly all humans suffer from one particular malady, the malady of confirmation bias. When we receive new information, we seek out and find the details that support the beliefs and assumptions that we already hold dear, even when an objective observer might see something completely differently. To make matters worse, it appears that in the 21st century, we also appear to suffer from a curation bias. Instead of seeking information and ideas from a variety of sources with distinct perspectives, we tend to derive our information from a limited pool of resources. Sources that tell us exactly what we want to hear. All too often, we read only the newspapers that align with our political beliefs, or the newscasts that obey our sense of propriety. Or we like the Facebook posts that conform to our ideologies. The rest, we ignore, hopefully. Sometimes we see that people decide to viciously attack those ideas that don't conform to their own. And by curating our ideas to suit our own tastes, by interpreting all new information according to our own fancies, we've effectively censored our own minds, prescribing information that we find to be politically, socially, and morally appropriate, while suppressing any ideas that compete with our autocratic claims. In effect, we've banned Farhad and Shirin, along with countless other ideas, and we didn't even need the Iranian Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance to make us do so. This season, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, this is our opportunity for teshuvah. This is our opportunity to return both to God and to ourselves. And so many times, we return with a penitent heart. But if we're really to heed the words of our Torah, then we don't need to return with a penitent heart. We just need to return with an open one. Because if we can open our hearts and our minds to the vast multitude of ideas and perspectives in our world, we might just open ourselves to the vast multitude of possibilities that God has in store for us this year. Gemar Chatima Tova, may each of us be sealed for a blessing in the book of life this year. Shabbat Shalom.